This is Christian Breton of Quebec City, Quebec. You're listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, February the 19th. My name's Sheldon. I am here with Jill, and we also have sitting in with us today, Mickey Dalmage out in Sherwood Park, Alberta. How are you doing, Mick?
Good morning. I'm doing fine.
Welcome to the show once again.
Welcome aboard.
And thank you all for tuning in to listen to our show. We are here every week with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio. Our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. We're live streaming and archived on the brand new CKUT website, ckut.ca. Our Facebook group is International Radio Report. We have a bunch of new members, Gurlon, Arwen, Jamie, Sammy, and Roni joining us this week. We are up to 906 members. And our YouTube channel, where you can go and catch the show at your convenience, youtube.com/@IRR, where we have 778 subscribers. We invite you to subscribe to the channel and to join our Facebook group to get all the information and benefits of being members of those two groups. I mentioned the CKUT webpage. As I said, it is new and totally revised, and our archives are in much better shape. We have a lot, as Jill mentioned last week, A lot more shows have been archived there now, so you can go back, 3 years, I think you said?
You can go to November of 2020 right now.
Okay, very good. So a lot of information there that you can find going back over those shows. So check it out, ckut.ca, where you'll find all the other interesting program here at the station. The station is a campus community radio station, and lots of different types of music and alternative programming available for you there. We have an update, as we've been promising you, all the latest updates on the Naswa Winterfest, the SWL Fest, as we like to call it, taking place Saturday, March the 4th via Zoom. And we received word this morning, just before going to our recording of the show, that the registration information, so you can register for the event, should be up and running this weekend. So go and check out the page, swlfest.com. There'll be an updated schedule of all the events happening as well, so you can check all of that out. We hope to see many of you there. It's Saturday, March the 4th via Zoom, and we'll have all the Zoom links and all the information you need to participate showing up on the web page. So looking forward to that.
If you are a medium wave DXer, there's an upcoming medium wave DX test, WDFB in Junction City, Danville, Kentucky, on 1170 kilohertz. The Courtesy Program Committee of the National Radio Club and International Radio Club of America is pleased to announce another test of Class D, daytime only station, WDFB, 1170 kilohertz in Junction City, Danville, Kentucky. The station will broadcast test tones, Morse code identifications, long duration 1 kilohertz test tones, and voice announcements. The testing will begin at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, that's 0501 UTC, on Saturday morning, February the 25th. The test will last for 2 hours. Traffic Manager Cindy Pike has opted to replace normal computer voice announcements in favor of a more authentic sample of WDFB's history. The test will be challenging, with powerful 50 kilowatt stations like KTSB and WWVA dominating the channel in most of the United States. But the station's last test on November 2nd, 2002 was widely heard in the US and Canada. So this is going to be an interesting one to test out and to receive. You know, those test tones and Morse code, they really go through very well in general. So even if you have another station dominating, you might still, in the background, hear that station, and it's worth trying it out.
Yeah, the station, normal formatted, is a Christian radio station. There may be some music that they'll be playing as well. I read something else on another site that they may have some Christian music playing to help stand out in the background as well. But definitely, as you said, the tones and the sweep tones and that sort of thing are usually the things that are going to cut through other stations. So just sit on the frequency. If you can, even turn your radio. If you got an interior loop antenna in your radio, that can help direct the signal a little bit more. So give it a shot. We'll post the details on our Facebook group, and you can check it out next Saturday morning. Always nice to try and get these DX tests and add a new station to the log if you haven't already heard them in the past. I think all I need to mention is the word balloon right now. There's a lot of stories going around about balloons. How do they tie into radio? Well, they directly tie into radio with this story. This comes from rtl.sdr.com. U.S. Air Force may have shot down an amateur radio Pico balloon over Canada. Since the famous takedown of a suspected Chinese spy balloon, U.S. jets have shot down a total of 3 more unidentified balloon objects, now confirmed to have been commercial or benign. There is speculation that at least one of these 3 objects may have been an amateur radio Pico balloon. One part of the amateur radio hobby is launching high-altitude balloons with various radio and other payloads. Larger amateur radio balloons launched in the United States require FAA clearance and need a radar reflector attached, and usually continually transmit APRS telemetry before naturally popping and falling back to Earth after a few hours, just like a weather balloon. However, there is also the simpler Pico ballooning hobby, which involves the use of Mylar helium party balloons to launch small solar-powered payloads that are only a few grams in weight. They typically transmit low-power WSPR at HF frequencies and can only transmit wherever there is sufficient solar power available. Amateur radio or SDR hobbyist stations around the world can pick up these transmissions and report them on amateursoundhub.org or on WSPRnet.org. Well-built balloons can totally circumnavigate the globe several times over several months before degrading. There's speculation that at least one of the objects shot down over Canada in Yukon by a U.S. Air Force jet may have been amateur radio Pico balloon K9 Yankee Oscar 15, which was launched from Illinois on October the 10th, 2022. It was on its 7th circumnavigation of the globe after being aloft for 123 days. The launch blog post indicates that K9YO15 balloon was flying a silver Mylar 32-inch sphere SAG balloon, which appears to be this one from Balloons Online. And there's some pictures. We'll post the link where you can see the pictures of these things. Unlike latex or rubber weather balloons, which inflate and stretch as they rise into lower atmosphere pressures, these Mylar balloons can't stretch. So their fully inflated ground size will be the same as their size at high altitudes, meaning the Pico balloons won't get much bigger than 32 inches. The payload was a GPS module, Arduino SI5351, used as a WSPR and APRS transmitter, and a solar panel, altogether weighing just 16.4 grams. A Pentagon memo notes that the object shot down over Canada was a, quote, small metallic balloon with a tethered payload, which fits the description of the Pico balloon exactly. So far, a K9YO15 has not sent any new telemetry since Friday before sunset over Alaska. Some have misread a confusing data presentation on SoundHub, which lists last known telemetry as covering a time range from then to now. Currently, the last we've heard from K9YO15 was Friday, February 10th before sunset over Alaska. But the map on SoundHub does show the last reported position. So good chance that's what this particular balloon that was shot down was. And we may hear in the next few days that that's what the other unidentified objects were as well.
You know, it's complicated because you can use so many types of balloons to send so many types of electronic equipment up in the air. You know, when it's not registered like the big balloons, you just don't know. There's no way to know if it's, from where it comes from, what does it actually do, and what do you do? What decision you take? I think we got relaxed the rules a little bit, shooting down everything we see. Come on. But, there's a lot of those going on. And
Yeah, I think if I was an alien coming to visit, I'd be turning around, making a U-turn and going back home right now, because this is showing that we're not very friendly towards objects that we can't identify.
So what's happening with our sun? Well, it's been pretty active. Once again, there's a lot of sunspots groups and some large sunspot groups too that tend to flare up here and there. There was a minor geomagnetic class storm that happened, and there could be some more to come, as there are a lot of the flares and a lot of the suns. Even there's a filament that sent out some coronal mass ejection. So from time to time that could happen. So we'll have conditions that will be changing over the week to come, depending on the flaring, depending on the possibility of the geomagnetic storming happening because of that. But there's no coronal holes to actually mess up things and make things worse. So up and down conditions, changing conditions. Even with auroras, it's interesting sometimes to check out. I've been making contacts. I've been noticing that when conditions change to almost geomagnetic storm level, there's really a shift in the pattern of where actually I'm making contacts. The solar flux is at 163, sunspot number 101. And, to enjoy and understand and be able to listen to those changing patterns in propagation, you got to do one thing, is to turn on a radio and listen.
Hey, IRR listeners, there's another program, World of Radio, now well over 2,000 weekly editions, with multiple broadcasts on two major shortwave stations in the U.S., WRMI and WBCQ. Also IRRS in Europe and Unique Radio in Australia. There are several chances to hear me, Glenn Hauser, on Sunday evenings, among others, and podcasts on demand. Full schedule info plus loads of other material, especially about shortwave, at worldofradio.com.
Yeah, Mickey, you were mentioning to us earlier you've been turning on the radio late into the evenings out in Alberta and hearing some interesting things up on higher frequencies.
Yes, Asia, past 06 UTC has just been booming in here. And had Tajikistan, Radio Free Asia, signing on at 0559 on 15675. Just fantastic signals, and then the Chinese stations, all the regionals and Sound of Hopes, and just amazing stuff in the last week.
Yeah, that sort of mirrors what Gilles has been saying the last couple of weeks as well, of looking in frequency ranges that often people tell you, oh, there's not going to be anything there that late into the evening, and this is now two cases of both of you proving that you've got to turn on that radio and listen and look in places where sometimes you may not expect to find things.
Yeah, remember that rule of day and night, high frequencies, low frequencies. It's flexible. Mm-hmm. It changes through the year and with solar activity. So there's the BBC radio switching off long-wave shipping forecast, and that's forcing sailors to install new alert systems. This is iNews UK via Mike Terry in the UK. Sailors could be left all at sea if they can't pick up the shipping forecast when the BBC switches off long-wave transmissions, maritime bodies have warned. So the BBC, the Met Office, and the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency are preparing to launch a public information campaign to alert mariners that they need to have receivers able to pick up weather warnings from alternative sources when long wave is switched off. I understands. Many amateur sailors still rely on the shipping forecast broadcast on long wave, which can be received far from the British mainland. The shift to digital means the BBC will end AM radio transmissions, including long wave and medium wave, currently still accessed by an estimated 6.5 million listeners each week. The government is keen to get it switched off. BBC Radio 5 Live's medium wave frequencies will fall silent by the end of 2027. The BBC plans to stop scheduling separate content for Radio 4 long wave, meaning much-loved offerings such as Test Match Special and a shipping forecast, first transmitted via telegraph signal in 1861, will disappear from 198 kHz, ahead of the closure of the long-wave platform itself. The early morning and late night shipping forecasts, delivering vital storm and gale warnings, will remain on the BBC FM, DAB, and online broadcasts, but 2 other current daily shipping forecasts could be lost. A date for long-wave switch-off is being discussed with the MCA, which is responsible for the safety of seafarers off the UK mainland. In even those gale warnings and shipping information from BBC FM or DAB, it just makes such a distance. If the boats are just a little too far away at sea, doesn't serve any purpose. So this is an example of, how we maybe are not thinking through everything that's going to happen when we shut down these services that do great distances. So boats could be at sea at really far distances for long wave and medium wave and still hear vital information that can make a big difference for the safety.
Yeah, leaving them on FM, you don't realize it, but if you're ever out on the water, you see the curve of the Earth on the horizon, and an FM signal is line of sight. So if the FM signal is going straight out and the boat is just over the curve, it's out of range and it's not going to hear it. And that curve is closer than you think.
Oh yeah.
So the FM signal, unless the antenna transmitter is like way up, and able to get a further distance, it's in its range. It's just not going to make much sense to put them on FM unless it's pleasure crafts that are close to the transmitters. So maybe they'll rethink this. I don't know, but it is part of that movement away from long wave and medium wave. Next, we take you over to Afghanistan and a story from Ayaz Gul of the Voice of America. The headline is "Dozens of Radio Channels Stop Broadcasting in Taliban-Ruled Afghanistan." Economic hardship and media restrictions stemming from the 2021 return to power of Afghanistan's Taliban have reportedly forced approximately 34% of radio stations to shutter operations in the country, rendering hundreds of men and women jobless. The Afghan Independent Journalists Union, AIJU, a Kabul-based local media monitor, released the figures on Monday to mark World Radio Day. The AIJU president told VOA that 345 radio channels were operating in the country before the Taliban takeover in August 2021, employing nearly 5,000 people, 25% of them women. But 117 stations have since ceased broadcasting due to economic problems, adding that 1,900 people, more than half of them women, subsequently lost their jobs. The remaining 228 stations employ more than 1,800 workers, including just a few dozen women. International sanctions on Taliban leaders and the suspension of financial assistance have deepened economic troubles in the largely aid-dependent country, multiplying challenges facing the Afghan media industry. Critics say increasing censorship and alleged abuses of journalists by Taliban authorities have severely undermined the Afghan free press. The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan reported last November that more than 200 journalists have suffered arbitrary arrest, ill-treatment, threats, and intimidation since the Taliban retook the country. Hundreds of Afghan journalists have since fled to neighboring Pakistan and other countries, fearing reprisals for their critical reporting while the Taliban were waging a deadly insurgency against the United States-backed former Afghan government in Kabul. Global media watchdog Reporters Without Borders says within the first 3 months of the Taliban takeover in 2021, 43% of Afghan media outlets were shuttered and 84% of female journalists lost their jobs. Taliban authorities reject the accusations of abuse and blame the closure on lack of funding. Critics question that assertion. The Taliban in late 2022 blocked VOA FM broadcasts, and in 2023, at least 3 privately owned telecom companies blocked access to VOA's Pashto and Dari websites and the sites for Azadi Radio, run by VOA's sister network, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. In an interview with VOA's Afghan service on Monday, a Taliban spokesperson did not directly respond to questions about why they ordered the broadcast to be blocked. After the Taliban came to power, we have not blocked a single media outlet. All of them are active, Mujahid said. Of course, there are amendments in the publications. The fundamental Sharia and Islamic problems that existed have been corrected. The spokesperson said that any outlets that have shuttered did so because of a loss of funding and due to the weak economy. The Islamist rulers are also under fire for their sweeping restrictions on Afghan women, who are barred from receiving an education and from most workplaces in the country. No foreign government has yet granted legitimacy to the Taliban regime over human rights concerns, especially the treatment of Afghan women.
This, first of all, tells me one thing we hear all the time from some people that, they don't listen to radio that much in these countries around the world today. Well, they're kind of quick to shut down the voices on the radio when something happens like the Taliban. They're shutting down radio, across the country, except, of course, the stations that will only have the voice of the Taliban. And this is an indication of the power of radio. And they don't want that, so, let's shut it down so that people are only getting information from within the country itself.
Yeah, they wouldn't be spending their time going around shutting things down unless they were saying something that they didn't want people to hear. Otherwise, why would you be doing it? So many stories like that. Your next story falls right into that same category.
Yep, another story of shutting down and closing down on the order of governments. Cambodia independent radio station VOD, a Voice of Democracy, closes on Prime Minister's orders by Sopheng Chiang of the AP News. One of Cambodia's last free media outlets, Voice of Democracy Radio, ceased operations on Monday after Prime Minister Hun Sen ordered its closure for allegedly slandering his son in a story. The story, which was also published on the website of VOD, as the station is better known, said that Hun Sen's son, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, had signed a donation on his father's behalf of $100,000 for Turkey earthquake relief. Hun Sen said the article misinterpreted the facts and that only the Prime Minister has the authority to make decisions on foreign aid. VOD acknowledged it had made a mistake, but that did not satisfy Hun Sen, who has ruled Cambodia with an iron fist for 38 years, during which he cracked down on critics and independent media. VOD has reported extensively on sensitive issues such as land grabbing and criminal gangs operating with near impunity to carry out internet scams with people, especially foreigners, tricked into working under conditions of near slavery. A previous media clampdown has already forced several outlets out of business on disputed grounds that they had not properly paid their taxes. The Information Ministry said Monday that VOD's license was being revoked because it has seriously violated the ethics of professional journalism and did not make a correction according to the press law affecting the honor and prestige of the government. Phil Robertson, Deputy Asia Director of Human Rights Watch, said the Cambodian government has never liked VOD's reporting, and given Prime Minister Hun Sen's authoritarian attitude towards independent media, it's likely VOD have been living on borrowed time for a while. But that's no excuse for this outrageous and ridiculous order to shut them down based on the silliest of rationales about who signed a government document to give aid to Turkey. This flimsy and absurd decision barely masks the government's real intent to further suppress media freedom. He said that historically, Hun Sen and his party usually crack down hard on any independent voices ahead of a national election. Going after VOD is a good indication that scheduled July 23 poll will be neither free nor fair, Robertson said. Hun Sen ordered VOD to cease operation at 10 a.m. Monday, and the station's personnel were at their desks when the representatives of Phnom Penh City Hall and the Information Ministry arrived to serve the order. The road outside was closed in an apparent effort to quash any street protests. However, there were no confrontations because VOD said it would honor the license revocation. Hun Sen had advised the authorities to inform the station when the deadline arrived and not take any further actions. So that is, they did actually retract themselves, say they made a little mistake, but that was not enough, and it's clearly trying to find the smallest of little problems and saying, oh, we don't want you on the air anymore. It's really taking something small and, using it to make sure that they don't have a voice anymore.
Yeah, it's obvious that's what was happening here. They were probably looking for some little thing to happen that they could jump on and say, that's it. We're pulling the plug. So unfortunately, a station promoting a different way of thinking in the country has now been silenced.
So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
We have, first off, the CQ 160 meter band SSB contest. It is organized by CQ. It is running from 2200 Zulu February 24th to 2200 Zulu February 26th, 160 meter band only, and it's both CW and SSB, so that should be quite a lot of fun.
There's the Réseau des émetteurs français Coupe de REF contest, SSB 0600 Zulu February 25th to 1800 Zulu February 26th. The objective, French amateurs work as many amateur stations as many French of the 97 metropolitan departments, overseas territories, and DXCC countries of the world as possible. Foreign amateurs work as many France stations and as many as of the 97 metropolitan departments, overseas territories as possible. And this is from 80 through 10 meters. Mode SSB.
Yeah, there should be a lot of activity there with quite a lot of activity in France on ham radio, so check that out. We have the Royal Belgian Amateur Radio Union holding their DX contest. This is the CW portion, 1300 February 25th to 1300 Zulu February 26th, 80 through 10 meters, and CW only for the mode.
And there's the North American QSO Party, RTTY, 1800 Zulu February 25th to 0559 Zulu February 26th, organized by the National Contest Journal. The bands are 80 through 10 meters, mode RTTY, and I can tell you there's a lot of RTTY on these contests.
Should be crowded bands for that activity taking place next weekend. On our show next week, we hope to have one of the organizers of the SWL Winterfest with us to talk about all the latest news before the event takes place. So we hope you can tune in for that. Mickey and Gilles and I will be activating the hospitality suite at that event, and we'll also have some ham radio activity going on during the event as well. So we'll have some more information on that for you next week as well.
You'll have to bring your own snacks and beverages.
Yep, virtual snacks. Again, this event has been held in person for many, many years, but the last few years, of course, due to COVID, it was switched over to virtual, and it will be a virtual event via Zoom again this year. That will do it for us today. We thank you for tuning in. Thanks to Mickey for dropping in from Sherwood Park, Alberta. And we thank everyone for listening. You can check out the show on YouTube again if you missed anything, and we'll post up our stories from today's show on our Facebook group, International Radio Report. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you again next Sunday.
Bye now. Have a great week.
Take care. Bye-bye.